China's urged the U.S. to expedite its probe into what caused Wednesday's mid-air collision near Washington, D.C. U.S. officials say they expect no survivors in one of the country's deadliest air disasters in decades. The two Chinese citizens were on board the American Airlines plane when it collided with a military helicopter near Reagan National Airport. Beijing has expressed its, quote, deep condolences and extended sympathies to family members. China's foreign ministry has requested updates on search efforts, which have been largely hindered by dangerous conditions in freezing waters. 67 people lost their lives when the two aircraft collided before falling into the icy Potomac River. Amongst them, a Philippine official who had traveled to the U.S. to inspect equipment for police. It's not clear whether his body has been retrieved, although reports say more than half the bodies have been recovered.
The Philippine National Police mourns the tragic loss of Police Colonel Pergentino N. Malabed. He is the chief of the Supply Management Division, who was among those on board American Airlines.
Investigators are analyzing two black boxes retrieved from the plane wreckage. A preliminary report is expected within 30 days. U.S. President Donald Trump has blamed the fatal accident on diversity policies championed by his Democratic predecessors, saying they lowered air safety standards. More Mitch McCann joins us live from New York. Mitch, search operations we mentioned earlier halted due to bad weather conditions. Have they since resumed?
Well, good morning from the east coast of the United States. They are likely to resume any moment from now as the sun rises here in the US. It's just gone past around 25 past 7 in the morning, so those operations are likely to resume at any moment. They were halted overnight because of bad conditions, as you mentioned, and I think it's important to discuss what some of those bad conditions are that are proving so challenging for those dive crews in the water on the Potomac River near Washington, D.C. The first one is how cold it is. It is in the middle of winter here in the United States at the moment. It's very cold, and the conditions in the water in the Potomac are well below zero at some time. So that makes one difficult aspect for divers. The other, and perhaps more challenging aspect, is that they are navigating around bits of plane, bits of helicopter, often very sharp parts of these aircraft as they try and get around the water, and it's very dangerous for them to do so. Also because of the low visibility made worse by the fact there is still jet fuel in the water. So it's very cold. They're navigating around parts of plane which are very sharp and dangerous, and also the low visibility with the jet fuel. So there are a combination of factors that is making this difficult. The DC fire chief called this an extremely complex operation. So far, it's been reported that 40 bodies have been recovered from both the helicopter and the plane crash. And also there are more bodies in the water, we understand, but they are difficult to reach. So there'll be some help brought in today by the Coast Guard, we understand, to get those remaining bodies out of the water.
Retrieving as well, not just bodies, but evidence that will be needed in what will likely be a very lengthy investigation. We're hearing reports. Now, we heard President Trump there earlier blaming diversity policies for what might have happened over the Potomac River. But there are also reports of understaffing in the Air Traffic Control Department, possibly contributing to this incident. Do we know anything more about possible causes? These are very early days, of course.
Yeah, very early days, but there is some information that's starting to emerge here, and you just alluded to one of these situations. The first one that we're hearing is, which has been widely reported now, is that in the control tower at DCA National Airport, Reagan National Airport on Wednesday night, one person was reportedly doing two jobs. So this person was managing the traffic for both helicopters and planes, rather than one person doing it for both. And it has to be said, it's been widely reported for some time here that the US government and the Federal Aviation Administration are having having a lot of difficulty trying to hire air traffic controllers. It is a specialized job. It takes a long time to train, and they are really understaffed in the United States at the moment. So the government has been doing everything it can to hire more air traffic controllers. But of course, you can't just hire them each day. They need to train for a long period of time. So that is one theory that's emerging. We've also been hearing reports from the New York Times that are quoting sources that have been suggesting the Black Hawk helicopter may have been flying high higher than it was allowed to do so by air traffic control. So there are two key pieces of information here. There is the first one about one person in the control tower reportedly doing two jobs instead of one. And then there's the second report about the Black Hawk helicopter possibly flying higher than it was allowed to do so. And just finally, you mentioned Donald Trump's comments there about diversity and inclusion policies. They were very highly controversial comments, I think it has to be said. All the major TV networks here in the United States this morning discussing this at length. Donald Trump is likely to be asked about this further in the coming hours and days around those comments, which some people have called extremely insensitive. So there are some leading theories there around what happened, but also a lot of focus on Donald Trump's comments after that controversial press conference yesterday in the US.
Oh, thanks. And Mitch McCann, they're reporting live from New York.